Jon Weiskopf joins me here today, and you could learn what his team is up to by heading over to blueeyedcapital.com. That's blueeyedcapital.com. We're going to be jumping around a little bit here today as we're talking about development, but I really appreciate you joining me.
I appreciate being here. It's wonderful.
Jon, let's start off with a little bit about your background and how you found your way into real estate investing. But I'm sure you've told this story a million times, so you can give us the truncated version.
Sure. 20 years ago, I was hoping to be a race car driver in Formula One. Ended up becoming an HVAC design engineer from my mechanical engineering background. Worked in commercial real estate for about 10 years before heading over to Apple. And I headed up their engineering group for their retail real estate and development. Did that for about 10 years. Designed stores all around the world. Got a chance to travel and do some really cool stuff. And a few years back, I found myself thinking, I've done this, I've done that, but what about what's in it for me? What's in it for other people? And I just gravitated towards the more commercial, residential, multifamily world of real estate and how I could have a bigger impact in the world.
Sure. Some of the information I saw on you, you talk a lot about impact investing. So I was hoping you could shed a little light on that and uh, maybe even define it for us.
Sure. Impact investing is probably a more technical term, but really what we try to do is achieve environmental and social outcomes alongside our financial returns with our investments. And so it really comes down to intentionally planning to do or achieve something, such as reduce energy consumption, for example, right? Solar panels, or a big part of our business is the social aspect. How do we help residents in affordable housing have a more stable life, have more financial mobility? A lot of those things seem trivial to those with stable, steady jobs, but those working paycheck to paycheck, it's difficult. And anybody in real estate who has a tenant, whether it's a commercial, lease or a residential lease, you need that person to pay, right? In order for your business to thrive. So we put a lot of time into that social and the resident aspect of our business.
Can you give us some examples of how you're achieving some of this then?
Yeah, some of it is really focusing on what your demographic is for your property. I own a LIHTC, low income housing tax credit property in Louisville, Kentucky. It was one of the first ones I acquired through syndication. That one is under HUD housing authority contracts with the city. We have maximum rents that we can charge, and utilities come into play there. This is a demographic that is living paycheck to paycheck. There's some people that miss a payment or can't pay all the time. Having intentional programs about how we can deal with that. That property in particular was purchased from a slumlord. It was pest infested, needed tons of repairs. We've spent, I think, 64 units. I think we have upgraded 42 of those units in a year and a half. And so it's really about showing these individuals that we care and we care for them and we want them to stay long. And so how do we help them do that? And some of that stuff is just being human. Sometimes it's no money at all. It's just intention and care.
So you mentioned you bought this particular building from a slumlord. Is that typically your approach? Are you acquiring these buildings? Building.
We do mostly acquiring existing facilities. I have not done any new development work in this space since I left my last job. So today we're looking for distressed assets. Our focus over the last few months has shifted towards mobile homes and other sorts of affordable communities like that. We do see the affordability crisis getting worse and worse in the United States. There's a massive demand for housing that services low income or very low income individuals. And when you look at history and you look at 2008 financial crisis, as delinquencies skyrocketed in multifamily apartment buildings, delinquencies in mobile home parks did not budge nearly as much. And so as we look out, we like to hold for a long period of time. How can we look ahead 10 years from now and say what asset is still going to be protected? And today, mobile home parks and things in that price range are really the most affordable asset class there is for people.
The building that you acquired, it sounded like there was a lot of effort and it's been a slow process. You said
Very slow.
updated like 42 units or so far. There's a lot of time, resources, and everything being consumed by these places as you're trying to get them up to code and trying to fix the problems there. How have you tried to keep things the cost wise under control so that these places remain affordable?
I'd be lying if I said we did a perfect job. Cost escalations over the past year have hurt us. We also didn't plan for the number of CapEx and unit upgrades that we were having. A lot of individuals, we had to go through evictions, people that were not paying at all. And those people damaged properties on the way out. I think overall, we had targeted around $4,000 a unit, and some units we were spending upwards of $7,000 to upgrade. It's meant we've had to scale back on other upgrades or other things that we wanted to do. And we've had to move to a more repair based approach for certain things like HVAC at the moment, because just getting units livable took us a lot more than we expected. We are lucky that the housing authority in Louisville had a pretty nice rental increase. I think it was 7.5% or so year over year, and that was under our underwriting projections. I think we had anticipated 4%, so that's helped us. It is a slow and steady process. Once you get one thing done, you're moving right on to the next. It's been strong. We've been partnering with Catholic Charities and some other nonprofits that help bring us residents, and that helps really keep our occupancy is about 96%. We hover around 90 or 92% or so economic occupancy.
That leads to then, what have you decided, like in this situation, what are some of the do's and don'ts, or how have you been prioritizing what needs to be done? It sounds like you have to be a little bit more methodical, a little bit more thought out as to what type of money and effort you're putting into these units, but you got to be mindful of that investment as well.
Yeah. Let's see. Roofs, we had to put roofs onto a payment plan, and we pay for our roofs now through cash flow, not through CapEx. We were able to find a contractor that was willing to work with us and give us a 12-month financing. Small little things from there. You have to weigh the pros and cons. We wanted to do lighting upgrades in our parking lot. We've had to postpone that for a little bit. Paint is peeling. We would love to beautify with paint, but that's cosmetic and not necessary for living. We hope we get there. And then we've also had to start looking for other sources of CapEx funding. We constantly are looking for, and I do this across the board, but we're constantly looking for grant money. There's a lot of grant money out there if you go to look, and I think it's out there for those individuals that are, again, trying to make an impact and trying to help change a community. We have not been successful in getting any grants yet, so it's still work in progress.
With the experience you've had here so far, what are some of those do's and don'ts, like I mentioned, that you've learned along the way that people should be aware of before they jump into something like this?
We did a fairly good due diligence job, so I think we knew what we had. I think where we maybe dropped the ball is, and evictions are hard. It's probably the biggest learning experience that I've had as an owner, rather than somebody that just used to design and build things. We underestimated the impact of that, I think, greatly. And so really honing in on what the demographic was, how accurate the economic occupancy was of the information that we were given, and how long it would take us. I think it took us about 6 months, 8 months longer than what we had hoped for in our unit turns. And so even getting up to profitability, we set at 80% occupied for a while, especially economic. And that dragged down our first year profits.
Mm-hmm. So
more reserves, Jack. Sorry, I'll close out. More reserves.
You can never have too many reserves, especially when you're tackling some of these places. You just made me like, when you talked about buying a slumlord type of property. They're just typically, you can usually spot the things on the surface, but there's usually much deeper issues that you're going to uncover, and it's just, you're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. So I can't even imagine what you've been dealing with, especially when you're talking about units costing almost double what you planned when rehabbing.
We've changed material. We've had to change material. We've had to put in carpet where we had originally planned in bedrooms, things like that, where we had planned for all vinyl plank because it's more durable in a demographic lower incomes and this types of demographics. We just didn't have the funds. I love buildings. They don't scare me. I've been doing construction for so long. I get bored if it's too easy.
You definitely picked something that doesn't sound like it must change on a daily basis. Have
Yeah.
you settled in certain markets, or are you countrywide?
I have 3 properties that are a little bit spread out today, but starting to hone in. I love the Midwest. Mobile home parks in Texas, there's a lot of them and it's good ones. So like I said, we're really focused on mobile home park procurement right now. We have a fund that we're raising for, an impact specific fund that's focused just on mobile homes. But I love Oklahoma, I love Kansas, and Las Vegas is a market of deep interest to me. They have a very big affordability crisis there, and with a government and a municipality that is focused on supporting that and actually being contributing to the problem solving there. So that's really great when you're working in this type of space, from getting land where you can do development on, or some sort of master lease agreements from the city. Those things can go a long way to making some of these projects profitable.
Have you mentioned you've been working and trying to get some grants? When you're talking about trailer parks, how have they been, the local communities, how have they been to work with in order to get some places turned around?
Not everybody loves the mobile home park. Let's be honest.
Not everybody, huh?
No, but I think it really depended on where you are. I live up in a small town in Wisconsin called Sturgeon Bay. They're very prevalent up here and all throughout
Right.
Wisconsin. And they're actually a contributor to the market. When I say we, me and my partners, we're very interested in modular construction as well. So prefabbed off-built homes that aren't mobile homes. And so we are actually trying to entice municipalities with um, reconfiguring mobile home parks to modular home parks. They provide something a little bit more of a fixed asset, physical asset that is. But I think you have to present your solution. What's the problem and what are you trying to solve? And in most cases, our goal is to get these distressed assets and become institutional grade good living and give that as beautification for a city. And most municipalities welcome that every day.
That's just it. Let's just face fact. Most trailer parks are typically, again, or seen as such. And any city is going to prefer to have something beautified and updated. It sounds like you're really painting a picture to an updated environment, and in doing so will add a little bit more stability to the community.
Yep, that's our goal, right? Thriving communities. And I honestly, mobile homes have a bad stigma, and I think it keeps a lot of investors away. And then from those that are buying, I say stay away because I want them all. And but for those investors out there, they are extremely resilient assets, and you can look at the data that goes back years, right? Stable occupancy during COVID, right? Stable delinquencies during COVID, I plus or minus a couple percent during these time periods, even financial. You talk about where your investment money is going. I don't know about you. I just have some multifamily investments that aren't doing all that great. It's a
Well,
struggle. Multifamilies are struggling today, even for the best operators.
depends on the leverage they have on it right now.
True.
I think we're
True.
going to
Fair.
see quite a bit. I know that we just saw a 50 basis point cut, but there are a lot of people right now that are struggling with their notes are coming due and terming out, and they got to renew for 5 years, and now their interest rate has doubled. It that cash flowing property isn't cash flowing anymore.
Yep.
Just to remind everybody, you can head over to blueeyedcapital.com to learn more about what Jon and his team are up to. And if you'd be interested, he just mentioned he's raising more capital to acquire more trailer parks. If you found some value in what we're talking about here so far, do us a quick favor, share with one of your investor friends. And if you're watching us on YouTube, do us a quick and subscribe. Jon, you're going in and trying to acquire these trailer parks now. What is some of the biggest lessons you've learned in that realm?
Heavy construction. And we talk about trying to be social impactors as part of our business. Not everybody wants you to impact them. And sometimes the best laid plans get hung up by things that are at times out of your control. And I know that maybe sounds cliche and all of that stuff, but there's mobile home parks have hidden things. We have one that we acquired in Lubbock, Texas. The water system, it's filled by water. There's an Air Force base nearby, and that Air Force base has tainted the well.
Hmm.
And lucky for us, we were very diligent in our due diligence in our CapEx planning. Oops, sorry about that. In our CapEx planning. But now we've had to pivot, and now we're in talks of putting in 1,000 feet of water pipe to connect to the city's system. We've had to be nimble. We found a illegal dumping site at that location. We thought it was just a pile of tires until we picked up the tires and removed the tires, and then we found some other stuff underneath. I think it's just, you got to be nimble. And honestly, Jack, I think that it really applies to all of this stuff. There's always something that's going to come up. Like you said, reserves, you can never have enough reserves. I think our goal and my goal as the engineer and kind of the numbers guy behind this and what we do is, how do I improve our resilience? And that's really for me is, how do I mitigate exterior influences on our ability to perform? But still, I got a ton to learn in mobile home parks. I'm just getting my feet wet. So
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah, we had a trailer park at one point too, and it was interesting to say the least. And one of the things that we were constantly fighting with is it seemed like you mentioned a kind of a illegal dumping spot. You do have quite a few dumpsters there, and the town saw it as the community dump. So you were just constantly fighting that situation to the point we put up security cameras, no dumping signs. We'd have to start turning in some of the local people when we'd get license plates they were just never notified, or they never realized that that wasn't what it was there for.
I had the same thing at a multifamily property. So I know your pain.
Yeah,
Yep.
it was just
Fences, cameras, signs. Yep.
and it just didn't matter. No matter what we did, it just until we started getting the police involved, and that's the last thing we wanted to do. But that was the only time where then word started to spread that this isn't actually meant for the community. This is for the trailer park.
It's always fun. There's always something interesting out there.
So you said there's never going to be enough reserves, but based on some of these projects you got going on, running a water pipe, and I'm sure that there's going to be some assessed costs associated with property taxes and that maybe on that. But how do you prepare for these things are huge unknowns?
We knew the water was a problem. We had planned for a well. We had planned to maintain that well and have a water treatment system for 10 plus years. And so we've had to divert some funds, but we found funds other places. We've been able to secure new homes there at a great discount. There's a lot of mobile home manufacturers that have overbuilt. We have some pretty good connections in the industry. And so we save money on our purchase or acquisition of new homes, and we've shifted that bucket. But we had very hefty contingencies on that portion of work, because we knew that we were not going to have all the expectations or all the details until we purchased the property and went through with it. So ultimately, our approach is a little bit more CapEx up front, but it will also ultimately save our investors, our residents, tremendous amount of money and health. Money aside, it's just the right thing. It's necessary to do. And by doing so, there's land around us that we can purchase. And we're looking at almost doubling the size of the mobile home park than when we first bought it in our first business plan. It's the strength of our fund is that having money within the fund has allowed us to reposition money for more CapEx here. But in turn, we know it produces a return on our investment based on our projections. And so it's the right use of funds to do that. So the fund has helped, right? We keep pretty hefty cash reserves in our funds for reasons to be able to pick up good properties or deal with problems that we have. So the fund has helped. If it was a single purchase acquisition, I think we still would have been okay, but maybe not as okay.
It sounds like you really have a great plan associated with getting new trailers into the park as well, because I've definitely had learned that lesson the hard way, is that you can't rely on residents pulling in a trailer house.
No, we
You
do
have
it all
to
for them.
figure out a way to get some fresh property in there just so it's starting to look better. And then there's options available for people looking for an affordable place to live.
Yep.
So what's your plan there? Like, how many new trailer houses are trying to bring into the
So,
service area?
yeah, sure. There are 35 homes today. And our plan is we've already put in new roads. We're working on new sewers. We have to upgrade water pipes now because the fire department wants new fire hydrants across the property. But we are planning to, if all goes well, we're going to take that from 35 mobile homes to 140 modular homes on the same plot of land.
Sure.
And it basically, we're building a build to rent community.
So you're going to do that like in phases? So you're put up a few, get them housed, put up the
We
next few.
are
How's that
trying
going to
to,
do? Are you going to do it
we
all in
are
one
trying to
shot?
Yeah, sure. Because of connecting to the water system in the city, we have to do some other rezoning with the city. We've hired local consultants to help us. You need experts, you need people that know the people in town to help you through this stuff. Our hope is to have all of our homes set up in the next 6 to 9 months, all 140.
Wow, that's really
Yeah.
aggressive.
The modular homes help us. We're teamed with an interesting company, and their units come on a flatbed truck and they unfold. So they set up in about a day and a half. It takes to set up one home with
Oh, wow.
about 3 guys.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen some of those videos on YouTube recently where they come and bring them in like that,
It's a real thing.
yeah, that's interesting. And you're dealing with certain environments by the sounds of it that you're not going to be too worrisome. If you were putting something like this in Wisconsin, it may not be as suitable.
Most of them are built around for different locations. There's some small things you have to change like that, but there's a lot of manufacturers out there that you can even change like the amount of insulation you have in the wall panels. A lot of these things are built. The company we're working for is a US based company, and they actually manufacture one home, I think a couple homes a day is their capacity. So we put the order in and they start coming off the assembly line and get on trucks and ship to us. Again, we're working closely with the city and things like that on this. So we're trying to do a lot of work in parallel, site development, water main construction. And then once we have those pads ready, start setting up homes that are just going to be sitting there waiting to go. It's probably going to take us longer to lease up than it will to do all the construction.
Just to remind everybody, head over to blueeyedcapital.com, blueeyedcapital.com. That's going to be a clickable link in the show notes. This has been a fantastic conversation, Jon, and you can tell we probably could go down a million different roads here. Before we jump into, I forgot to warn you, my rapid fire questions.
Uh-oh.
Is there a question or concept you wish we would have covered up to this point?
No, I think this is great. I tell everybody out there is don't look at the short term. If you are going into real estate, you need to look farther out to protect yourself.
That's good, great advice. But if you're ready, Jon, we'll jump into the rapid fire and close this out at this episode.
Let's do it.
First, what lie do real estate investors sometimes tell themselves?
That I'm going to get unlimited rent growth forever.
That's a good one. If you could go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that be?
Read books that are not in your area of interest.
Do you have a book recommendation, or what are you reading right now?
I got one. It's called It Takes What It Takes. And I think that's an entrepreneur. You can yourself in a quite lonely spots now and then, thinking about, oh my God, what am I doing? Or why am I doing this? And so it's really a book about getting over those mental humps, those mental hurdles about, I can't do this, or I'm not made for this, or I'm not meant for this. It's a great book. I think it's a pretty simple read. And I think anybody breaking in that space are really just looking to motivate themselves a bit like that and suppress negativity. Good book.
What single strategy, process, or tool have you implemented that has had the biggest time-saving impact to you or your business?
I am very big on structured asset management, uh, planning and operations. Real estate is about real estate, and it's about the asset that you own. It's a business, but it's underlined by that asset. And you need to be aware of what it is that you own, the subsystems within what you own, because if you do not pay attention, they will bite you. And so look at your data, track it, follow it. And if you do, you will spot problems before they get you.
I appreciate this again, Jon. One last time, it is blueeyedcapital.com. It's going to be a clickable link in the show notes, but Really, your time today. This was a great conversation.
Thanks, Jack. Appreciate it.